The greatest moment at Griffith Stadium took place on October 10, 1924. Prior to the 1924 season, Walter Johnson of the Washington Nationals had made a name for himself as the most dominating pitcher in the game. In his 21-year career, the Big Train won 417 games, had 12 20-win seasons, 2 of more than 30, 3,509 career strikeouts, 110 shutouts, 7 200 strikeout seasons, 2 of more than 300, 5 ERA titles, and 2 MVP awards. But despite all of his accomplishments in his first 17 seasons, he had pitched for many losing teams, and at the age of 36, it looked like he might never get to play in a World Series. However, in 1924, the Nationals, better known by their nickname the Senators, finally assembled an excellent ball club and won their first American League pennant, and fans all across the country were rooting for Washington, hoping that the greatest pitcher of his era could get a world championship. The Senators were facing off against the New York Giants, who had 7 Hall of Famers, and were led by John McGraw, considered by many the greatest manager in baseball history. The Giants made a name for themselves as one of baseball's elite teams and had won their 4th straight National League pennant. The 1924 Fall Classic would be one for the ages. 5 of the 7 games would be decided by 2 runs or less, 2 games were decided in extra innings, and 2 games were decided in the final at-bat. After 5 games, the Giants led the series 3-2, and it looked like they were going to win their 3rd title in 4 years. And even though the Big Train had pitched well, he was the losing pitcher in both of his 2 starts. It was being regarded as a national tragedy, and it looked like Johnson was going to be the GOAT of the series. But heading back to Washington, the Senators were not going to go quietly. They would win Game 6 on a brilliant performance by Tom Zachary to even up the series. But as good as the first 6 games were, nothing could have prepared anyone for what was to come in Game 7. Starting were Virgil Barnes for the Giants, hoping to atone his loss in Game 4 against Curly Ogden, making his first start in the series. Ogden wouldn't get out of the first inning and would be replaced by Game 4 winner George Mogridge. Both pitchers would hold each team scoreless for the first 3 innings. Then in the bottom of the 4th, Bucky Harris put the Senators on board with a home run to give them a 1-0 lead. Mogridge would hold the Giants at bay through 5 innings, but they would chase him in the 6th. After New York put runners at 1st and 3rd with no one out, Furbo Marbury came in and would give up a sacrifice fly to Irish Musil to tie the game. The Giants would score 2 more runs on a single and 2 errors to take a 3-1 lead. Barnes continued to hold the Senators in check through 7 innings, and with the way he was pitching, it looked like the lead was going to be enough, but Washington had other ideas in the 8th. The Senators would load the bases, and with 2 outs, Bucky Harris would come to the plate and hit a routine ground ball to Freddie Lindstrom. But the ball would hit a pebble, taking a bad hop into left field to score 2 runs and tie the game at 3. Art Neff came in and would get out of the inning, but the damage was done. Then in the top of the 9th, Walter Johnson came into the game with only 1 day of rest, with a chance to atone for his 2 losses. After retiring the first hitter, he would give up a triple to Frankie Frisch, and after an intentional walk to Ross Youngs, he would strike out George Kelly to bring up Irish Musil. Youngs would steal second to eliminate a forced play, but Johnson would get out of it, retiring Musil on a ground ball. In the bottom half, it was the Senators' turn. With 1 out, Joe Judge would single to center, and Ossie Bluge would hit a ground ball to Kelly at first base, who would throw to second for a force, but shortstop Travis Jackson couldn't field the ball, and it would go into the outfield, putting runners at the corners and chasing Art Neff. Hugh McQuillan came in to relieve, and Ralph Miller would come to the plate with the winning run now just 90 feet away, but handsome Hugh would get Miller to hit into a double play, and the game would go extra innings. After an uneventful 10th, the Giants would get to Johnson again in the 11th. Heine Groh would lead off with a single, and after advancing to second on a sacrifice, the dangerous Frankie Frisch came to the plate, but Johnson would strike him out. Then, following an intentional walk, Johnson would strike out Kelly again to get out of the inning. After the Giants got out of a jam in the bottom of the 11th, they would encounter one of the most unpredictable moments in World Series history in the 12th. In the home half, Muddy Ruel came to the plate with one out and hit a foul pop-up behind home plate. Catcher Hank Gowdy threw his mask off and camped under the ball, but he got his foot stuck in the mask. While trying to shake his foot loose, he was unable to catch the ball as it dropped to the ground. With new life, Ruel hit a double to left to bring up Walter Johnson. Big Train would hit a routine ground ball to Jackson, who would make another error. Instead of the inning being over, the Senators now had runners at first and second with just one out, with Earl McNeely coming to the plate. With the chance to be a hero, McNeely would hit a ground ball to Lindstrom, but to everyone's surprise, the ball would hit the same pebble and bounce past Lindstrom once again, and Ruel would score the winning run to bring the nation's capital and Walter Johnson their first world championship. The Senators would go on to win 2 more American League pennants before moving to Minnesota in 1961, where they would win 2 more World Series, and after a second Washington team moved to Texas in 1972, Major League Baseball would make a long-awaited return to the nation's capital in 2005 with the debut of the Washington Nationals to begin a new chapter in Washington baseball.